Most tourists go fishing in Alaska without a guide and go home empty-handed. But the locals, they limit out in under an hour. We fished Alaska's famous Russian River during the early Sockeye run. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what the locals do differently to limit out in under an hour. All right. Okay, our line is going to be 20 to 40, and 40 is a lot. It's basically like a cable. So we go here, we have our barrel swivel. That's a barrel swivel. Barrel swivel. And we have our leader line. And our leader line is going to be less poundage than our main line, so that if we get a snag, then the leader line will break off and we won't have to reline. It's a big time saver. So then we have our hook, our Russian River fly. Russian River fly. Above the barrel swivel, so that the weights aren't sliding up and down to the fly, because that's illegal. You can't have weights near your hook. You have inline weights. You can add more or less weights depending on where you are in the river. I used 3/8 ounce. 3/8 ounce. This line is 20 to 30 pound. Here's how you catch salmon on the Russian River in the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska. First, get your barrel swivel, tie that on. And you're probably going to want to do either an improved fisherman's knot or a polymer knot. And then for your leader length, you're going to want to probably get either a lighter line. This is 40-pound test, and it's basically like a cable. You probably don't need 40 pound. You can go all the way down to maybe 20, but you're going to lose less fish if you use a heavier line, but you're also going to have a harder time with snags. So that's why I like to use a heavier line for my main line, and then my leader line's a little bit lighter. That also helps with the fish not seeing the line. This big heavy 40 pound, the fish will see it in the water and move out of the way. So it has to be greater than 18 inches. And most of the times you're gonna want to go more than that anyways. So you take your greater than 18 inches and you tie it on through the loop, and then you're supposed to lick it too. Now at the other end, you take your Russian River fly. They look like this. They're really cheap, less than $1 at the fishing store. And you tie her on. If you want a stronger knot, I would do polymer, but regular fisherman's knot is probably fine. Especially if you get a snag, then you want it to keep. It would be nice if you didn't have to lose your leader. It would be nice if you just lost this. It would also be a good idea to tie it on a whole bunch of these before you go to the river, so then you're not sitting and retying while you're supposed to be fishing. Then you just have a bunch of different lengths of these. You could probably start out with maybe like a 6-foot length and then just cut it down. Now you have your leader, more than 18 inches, with your Russian River fly. Then you take your inline weights, and these weights are just a little piece of lead with this stopper in there. So you take your line, and I like to put it above the swivel. When you drag your line through the water, it's going to hit a whole bunch of rocks and stuff. And every time it hits a rock, it's going to pull that weight down, 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 down. And it is illegal to have weights on your flies on the river. And the reason that they're trying to prevent that is so that people do not use these, a weighted hook, right? So you can just throw it in the water and snag fish, right? Even though you are still flossing fish. So then you would crimp that down. Crimp this down so that it becomes tight onto your line. Okay? So, depending on how fast the river is moving where you are, you're going to add another one. when you get to the river, you're going to take your polarized glasses and you're going to find the fish in the water. You're going to be able to see them. They'll be chrome or whatever color. And you take your waders, walk out into the water, and you cast out in front of the fish. Say the river's moving this way, and then there's a fish right here swimming. You're going to cast out in front of the fish, ahead of them, past them, and then you're going to wind in perpendicular because you'll be standing in the river, and you'll feel this weight either bouncing on the bottom or you'll feel it pull it into the fish's mouth. As soon as you feel that, then you're going to pull the hook into the fish's mouth. So you'll be able to watch your fly in the water, and you'll be able to watch it where it is in accordance with the fish. So it could be higher or lower. The fish will be swimming probably behind a rock or a log or something, or in a little divot. So what you're going to have to do is change the length of your leader. You're going to have to take your scissors and cut down these ends of the fly, or you're going to have to add more weights so that when you cast in the water, you watch your fly land, and when you pull it, it'll start to sink slower than the weight, obviously, and it needs to hit in the same spot as the fish so that you can pull it into its mouth. The same height, the same area, pull it into its mouth. And when you cast, you usually cast about 45 degrees ahead of the fish, and then you wind in and you pull your line back towards you into the fish. Right? So you cast out, pull your line into the fish's mouth. And you just keep doing that, adjust the length of the leader, adjust the weight, adjust the flies. And that's it. It's all you got to do. And remember those polarized glasses, because when you see the fish, they are not eating when they get into the river. You are flossing them. Now, let's talk about rod size. We were using a big, medium heavy, fast action rod. You're not really fighting the fish at that point. You're kind of just dragging them in. But if you want to fight the fish, or maybe have a little bit more sensitivity in your rod, that's fine too. You're just going to have a harder time winding them in. The other thing with this big, heavy rod is that your arms will hurt after 1,000 casts, right? So if you have a lighter rod and a lighter reel, you'll fight the fish more, but your arms won't get as tired, and you'll have a little bit more sensitivity. For what we were doing, I probably would have ended up going with this rod again. On a different river, where the water's moving a little bit slower, and you want that sensitivity, where the Russian River is cooking pretty good, especially where we were at, it didn't really matter so much. The other thing that you might want is a big old net like this. You don't really need it, especially if you have 40-pound test, because you can just drag the fish on to shore. There's a couple other things you guys need to be aware about. When you're casting, 45-degree angle, and you're following your line down. So you're casting, and you're winding in, and you're winding in, which will pull that line straight and perpendicular to the river, which is flowing this way, right? I'm standing in the river with my waders, casting, pulling my line perpendicular. The fish is swimming up the river like this, right? So when I cast, I'm pulling that line into its mouth, and I feel that weight hit something that's not a rock, right? So then I know, however long your leader is, I have to wind in that much and then set the hook. So a lot of times in Alaska, you're going to be combat fishing, close quarters. You need enough space where you're still able to set that hook. Also, when you are combat fishing, you need to pay attention to what everyone else is doing. So when they're casting, they're going to be doing the same 45-degree shuffle over and over again. And you don't want to be getting tangled, pissing everybody off, pissing the locals off. So when they cast, you cast. And you kind of all go in unison, because everyone's going to be doing the same thing. The other thing is that if you hook a fish in the back, tail, whatever, not in the mouth, that's illegal, and you have to throw it back. The Alaska DNR do not mess around, and you do not want an expensive ticket. That's all, everyone. Good luck out there. Tight lines.